Moving on, Jeremy Scholl says, big lie, we're a democracy. We're not a democracy, we're a republic. We're not even much of a democracy in terms of the way we vote anymore. The whole voting rights issue is a whole other story. I suspect what he's getting at here, certainly what I think is worth getting at, is we talk about America as a democracy. We live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy, and we don't want to live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And there's an enormous difference between a republic and a democracy. And look, the reason I venerate the founders is not because they were good-looking guys with powdered wigs or any of the nonsense, or they were all white slaveholders. I revere them because they put an enormous amount of work into making my life better. They put enormous amounts of work in the 1700s into making my life in 2015 better. And one of the things that they did all the work on was they read a lot, and they studied a lot, and they argued a lot, and they debated a lot. And what they did was they looked throughout all of history, and they saw this is working, this isn't. This is kind of good. If we modify this, this may be better. And they didn't just sit there with like the bloody Bolsheviks, and bloody is the word for these guys. They didn't just sit there, hey, we're going to come up with a completely new method of government, and we'll execute people who disagree with us. What could possibly go wrong? The founders didn't have that kind of arrogance. They said, we're not going to develop this off a blank piece of paper. We need to look at what's working. And they did. And they realized that democracy was in many ways, the idea of government by the people, for the people, is an important deal. That was, of course, in the Gettysburg Address much later. But they understood that this had to be we the people. But they also understood that we the people, consisting of individuals who are not always rational, are subject to certain things. And one of the things we're subject to are things like these economic booms, where you've got a tulip bulb that's worth, $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 in today's money. There's a tulip economy, these bubble economies, speculative economies. Get in while you can, gold rushes. That's got a powerful effect over the human mind, and you got to be careful about that. The other thing they had was the idea that there might be charismatic leaders who'd come and lie to the people for power. Imagine such a thing happening like that today. It's inconceivable. But political power would come, and there's a book called Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, and it lists a series of examples when people go kind of nuts. And so what the founders said was, democracy is great, but more important are rights, individual rights. This is why this whole thing is so important. The Constitution is so important. And you ask yourself a question, could this ever happen? Well, it's happened all the time, but let's just take it in 1933 in Germany, 33, yeah. You can have a democracy vote themselves out of power. The Reichstag voted Adolf Hitler, enabling the Enabling Act. They gave him dictatorial powers. He said he'd give it back, but he didn't. Imagine. But they voted themselves out of existence, the Reichstag. Democracy voted itself out of existence. You had an iconic enough and a charismatic enough dictator, enough of a leader with enough persuasive ability. He persuaded people to give up their freedoms. They voted their freedoms away, democratically, completely legally. And it's not just Nazi Germany, it happens all over the place. And the founders realized this is, even though that happened after the founders, they realized this is human nature. That's what a democracy can do. A republic, on the other hand, has rights that are inviolable. They can't be touched by the people. They can't be touched by the government. The Bill of Rights is not a list of what the government allows you to do. It's a list of things that are inherent in you from birth, and the government is not allowed to touch them. And we don't ask for permission from the government. The government has to ask for permission from us. This is what this whole thing is based on. It's a republic. And here's a little thought experiment for you. If you lived in a perfect republic, you don't need democracy at all. You don't need elections. Because if you lived in a perfect republic, you would be able to say, my rights are inviolate. You can't make me do things I don't want to do. What do I need a democracy for if I live in a world without violation of my ability to do what I want to do? A perfect republic protects your rights, and all a democracy can do is degrade those rights legally by vote. A perfect democracy, on the other hand, can make decisions like, you know what, we don't like these Jewish people. We're going to take all their stuff, and we're going to throw them out of their houses, we're going to put them in boxcars, we're going to kill them all. That was a decision made by a dictator, but it had the broad support of the German people, and you can vote away anything. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting for what's for dinner, right? Too bad for you, lamb. Just you're outvoted. Too bad. The entire purpose of a republic is to protect everybody's rights, because if you protect the rights of the individual, the rights of the group are protected automatically. But if you protect a group, it doesn't mean that people in the other group aren't protected. Usually means they're going to die unpleasantly. So no, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic, and we need to make this case all the time. A republic is a democracy with brakes on it, with the ability to move slowly over time, but largely immune to these crazes that sweep populations, and it's absolutely the way to go. And everything that the Democrats do is designed to reduce the republic to the level of a democracy. That's why they want to get rid of the Electoral College. That's why they want to eliminate state power. That's why they want to concentrate power into one place so they can gin up enough votes in the cities, and then they can tell everybody what to do, and they're in hog heaven when that happens.